mission that the space shuttle did, and they did some filming and caught some unusual objects on the film. Here is a small animation of the event depicting what many UFO believers believe that happened out in space. UFO pops up through the atmosphere and glides along, and then suddenly shoots off at Mach 800 into outer space. Then they claim that a missile, or missile as Americans would say, would shoot from the atmosphere into outer space, totally missing the UFO. Or some say it might have been an energy beam shot from the ground into outer space to try and destroy it. The missile could have been shot from a F-14 high up in the atmosphere, or similar craft, and also a energy beam laser weapon do exist on these DC type planes that fly high up in the atmosphere and can shoot down missiles and also probably satellites. So some say the energy weapon could have been that. I have to say I'm quite excited to see what my analysis reveals to myself even, and I'm now putting it all together for you, and I will tell you what I think. I did a lot of path motion analysis, and you could see how the objects behave and all the objects in space, and it makes it quite easy to see what's going on better. I was quite excited to see the outcome myself. First of all, I will show you the full clip. It's quite long, but the segment in it is very short, and I will point it out when it happens. And you can see how they're filming it in space and how bad the quality of the cameras are back in 1991. I have some information on the camera used. It was a 1024 by 1024 256 color grayscale experimental camera that did almost 6 frames per second. It was recorded on magnetic disc, as it says on the information, and then they played around with it on laptop and then transmitted it to Earth. If it was a color image, we may have got more information from the footage. Also, that it's not stereo image, we don't know where the objects are within the space from the camera to planet Earth, which makes debunking a lot more harder, of course. And of course the grainy footage, low light, and also solar sun's flare on the lens, the glass casing. And then I will present some of the experts, what they say from NASA itself and ufology people. And then I will give you my rundown of the graphics and say what I think it is. Here is the full clip now, and you can see they're filming a lightning storm as seen from outer space. The sun's in the top left corner, and it's causing some lens flare across the screen, and it's got various grainy bits popping up on the screen, which may be noise because it's recorded on videotape. Maybe radiation interference, or just what they say is ice crystals flickering in front of the space shuttle. Here is the smoking gun NASA footage now of the UFO, alleged UFO popping up through the atmosphere layer and travelling along and then zooming off into outer space on a 90-degree turn at alleged calculated Mach 800 plus, and then you see a streak of light, which some say is the missile or energy weapon beam. Soon we'll hear NASA talk to the space shuttle about dumping the water before re-entry.
Discovery Houston for JO.
Yeah, Jan, go ahead.
Morning, JO. We predict the maneuver to the supply water dump attitude will take about 15 minutes, and in order to start the dump on time, we'd like for you to do that maneuver now. We need it to prevent contamination.
Okay, I understand you want us to start the supply water dump now, or at least initiate the maneuver now.
We'd like for you to initiate the maneuver, and then when you get there, initiate the water dump.
Okay.
As you can see, the image got oversaturated with white, and you can see objects moving around still. This is where they start packing up the camera, and you can see as he lowers it down from viewing the Earth to seeing the robotic arm down the side of the shuttle, and then he turns and you can see the front of the ship and heads towards it to the airlock. As you can see, it takes quite a long time to walk in space, to move around and get back inside the craft. The space shuttle was designed to have extra labs inside the cargo bay and also place satellites that they launched from there. I have some diagrams of the space shuttle so you can see what it looks like and where the camera would have been coming up in the episode. So we'll look at now some of the analysis done, and of course it comes from Richard Hoagland, and it got torn to bits by an expert known as James Oberg, and you can read it all there. It goes on and on and on, and it goes into extreme detail debunking Hoagland's analysis of the video, and it talks mainly about ice particles and how the jets of the space shuttle L5D and R5D pushed along some of the crystals that seem to accelerate out into space are actually close to the camera. That's in NASA's line, or experts' opinion. So that's the problem with 2D cameras. We can't see how far away from the camera lens the particles are floating around, and whether they're large objects far away or small objects very close. And this is always a problem with videos and photos of UFOs, even in current present day. Hopefully the 3D cameras will be commonplace in future, and this problem will be solved, and we'll have maybe some decent UFO photographs that can't be debunked. Also, there's various UFO forums and blogs, like Above Top Secret and also Metabunk, where everybody was debating ice crystals. But I think my final analysis done on the path of motions may put a rest to some of it, and I'll go over that in a minute. I leave the best bit to last. First of all, I need to show you the text of where the rocket engines are and how it relates to the video. On Above Top Secret website, they're debating whether it could be ice particles using mathematics. Unfortunately, mathematics is not foolproof. As you can see on this example here, if your theorem is incorrect, then the result's going to be incorrect. And it's not exact science, it's more of a belief that you're going to be correct. So you can't just purely say it's not ice particles based on mathematical movements. It's only as good as the data that you have. And you can't beat a 3D stereo camera. Then you know how big the particles are and how far away they are. So here's an argument going on about particles and counter arguments, and it goes on and on and on, just like the other ones. It's like an openly include the late Edgar Mitchell, the 6th astronaut to walk on the moon, who went to say he had evidence alien races were in contact with the US government. But Mr. Jones is not convinced by the testimonies of Mr. Mitchell and other whistleblowers. He says the explanation for the mystery sightings is more simple. He wrote, astronauts have not seen any evidence of alien life, Reports of unidentified flying objects and images returned from shuttle or space station have turned out to be ice crystals, drifting orbital debris, lightning flashes, or meteorites streaking through the dark atmosphere below. So the question is, where does all this water come from that forms the crystals around the spacecraft in the first place? Here's two examples. One is fluids ejected from the space shuttle in the form of urine, and also the exhaust fumes from the rockets themselves is mostly water vapor, because it takes up hydrogen and oxygen to create the energy, and the byproduct is water. It's about the mission and done their own case studies. This one here by Fred Altz is called Cosmic Mechanic, and he's traced the main objects and their paths, and he calls them streaks. I call them streamers because they go very fast. But his diagram doesn't really match accurately, I don't think, when you have a look at my analysis. But it's not very good, and I will compare it to mine at the end here, and you'll see for yourself. The space shuttle and where all the rockets are. You can see it's got a lot of orbital rockets called RCS and Werner. And the key point is to note where the L5D and R5D ones are, because it's crucial in the video analysis coming up. There's a vector diagram showing which way the force of the thrust goes as well. And the small rockets obviously don't cause a sudden motion and gradual increase upwards or downwards or left and right. And they've also got some in the nose cone. So looking at the end of the full video, how the camera moves, I've estimated whereabouts the camera position was to the rockets on the space shuttle. And you can see here of a astronaut with a camera and a spacesuit, and here's a following diagram that I made up with the vector angles and a picture of the space shuttle, and you can see it has a lab inside the cargo bay. So finally onto my analysis of the footage. This is the key segment only. Here I have enhanced the objects. The bigger ones or closer ones to the camera will be brighter, and as it goes further away it dims in contrast or brightness, and you can see it tapers off when it flies into space. And also I've added the motion tracking, so it adds to the previous frame and enhances the footage. You will notice the fast moving streaker or streamer is not very easy to see in this analysis, because it's thinner and fast moving, and it's not as bright as the other objects, which means it should be smaller or further away from the camera. The streaker or streamer is the so-called missile or energy laser weapon that was fired at the UFO object, according to the UFO believers. Now you can see the object is gliding along, and then suddenly does a right angle fast zoom out into space, and then the missile shows up. On this next sequence I have darkened it and added in the labels where the flashes of the shuttle rockets occur, and you can see when L5D fires, the particle or the UFO shoots off into space. That kind of tells me straight away it's related to the thruster, not the missile that shoots up after the event. So like the NASA scientists looking at this, I'm leaning towards it actually being a ice crystal myself rather than a alien craft. I'll be interested to see what you think as well, and I'm sure there's a few hardcore people there that still won't believe it's ice crystals. Now I focus on the streamers or streaks of the so-called laser weapon and missile, and it's darkened, and this is the final print of it all combined, and I also add labels there so you can have a read, and then I'll show you the video clips that I made from it, and I will discuss more about it. It's hard to tell which objects are stars, and you can see that all of them are producing movement of a gradual heading towards down or going right, but the claim was that the stars weren't moving when the thrusters of the rockets ignited, because the space shuttle should have been in motion, but that was explained earlier in that debate from that James guy. Second particle string that starts at the very bottom and goes through almost to the edge of Earth. You can tell that it's all very much doubts about it, and I would give it probably 90% that it was ice crystals, just like NASA has been saying all